Okay. All right. This is something I talked to Hollis about doing a while back, and that would be to talk about how plumbing's changed in 100 years. I think a lot of this stuff is on my mind because I just celebrated 50 years in the plumbing and heating business, and I worked with old guys when I first got into the business. They were World War II guys and earlier, and some of these guys came back from the war and they went right into business, and I ended up getting into this business kind of old school. My father did old school work. The guys that he worked for did old school work. So I got to see a lot of that stuff when I was out in the field. And I thought it would be kind of interesting because I get people every now and then say, "Oh, I don't want to buy one of those new fancy toilets, the low flush, because I hear they give you a lot of problems." I haven't found that to be the case. Uh, there were some initial problems, but a lot of that seems to have been worked out. But I found a list from an old slideshow that I did years ago, and I wanted to go through, um, show you where we were just 50, 60 years ago, where we were in the business. Before the 50s, toilets typically used 7 gallons of water for each flush. Then in the 60s, about 5 gallons. 1980s, and this is where I come in the late 70s and early 80s. I remember them telling us we're going to go to low flush toilets, and the low flush toilet was 3.5 gallons back then. And they said the exact same thing they said when we went to the lower flushes today. They said, oh, we're going to have all kinds of problems and all, and really we didn't seem to have too much of a concern. In the mid 90s, 1.6 gallon was pretty much the standard. And we do have high efficiency toilets that actually will flush with 1.28 gallon. So that's a huge difference from where we started out. So, a lot of that's brought on because, we know we got to save water. We know we got to save water. We got to, take care of our resources and things like that. So that came about because of that. But there's some other things that I thought might be interesting to you. Um, some of you guys that work in older areas, you may have seen these things pop up. And I'm gonna tell you, they were probably like 5 gallon flush. They're the biggest pain I've ever seen in my life. Anytime I ever got a job and I had to go out and work on one of these things, I just dreaded it because that elbow that you see there, that pretty little chrome elbow, was always difficult to put in. You would have to, that tank is screwed to the wall. You'd have to unscrew the tank. You'd have to lift it up. And they were getting broken and things like that, people trying to work on them. I would imagine the vast majority of them have been replaced over the years, but you still may pop up with one every now and then. And I would tell you, look at that flush L. It was notorious for leaking and difficult to repair. This seems kind of weird, I know, but we actually used to make a gasket out of lamp wicking. We would unscrew the nut up there at the top and wrap this lamp wicking around the pipe and put maybe some pipe dope on it or something and tighten it up, slowly tighten it up and compress it to where we created a gasket out of it, because the regular gaskets that would come with the thing, they just wouldn't do the job. They would not take the shape of the device. And this thing wasn't much more than a P-trap underneath the sink. It was pretty thin. It was a pretty thin material overall. But anyway, I was so glad to see that stuff go. And today everything's pretty good. We do have some crazy expensive toilets with pumps in them and all that stuff. And so you're looking at thousands of dollars for some of these things. But the average person is just going to go out and buy maybe a decent toilet would be a Kohler or an American Standard or something like that. And generally, you don't have too much of a problem. Most toilets sit 12 inches off of the floor. They're 12-inch rough toilets. Sometimes you can get a 14-inch. Sometimes you can order one that's 10-inch. So if the flange is off or something like that, you can actually adjust for that. But they were trying to answer questions and solve problems and things like that. And one of the things that early on became an issue was they initially they called these things comfort height toilets, and they would be, instead of maybe 15 or 16 inches, they'd be like 17 to 20 inches, and they were primarily for older people. The boomers were getting older, and so they did that because it was easier to deal with. So industry came up with a solution, and they moved a lot of these things. But then something else has happened, and I'm probably more aware of it than most. I have a handicapped daughter. Is handicapped toilets. So, some people need these to transfer from a wheelchair to the toilet or something. So a 21-inch toilet is not unusual. You can get one off of the, that high off of the floor. Now, I noticed this one. If you pay attention, there's no bolt on it, so I'm sure that's just an example sitting there. But I looked at it. When you're in the business, you kind of look for stuff, and I noticed no bolt holding that toilet to the floor. But anyway, a 21-inch toilet kind of answered that problem. There's all kinds of things out there today. We have seats that can convert to bidets. We have warming seats and all kinds of stuff. There's just a ton of stuff out there, and it seems like if somebody can, have an issue that they want to have taken care of, industry will step in and and come up with something that most of us are not aware of is these slow falling toilet seats. These things, you kind of push them forward and they slowly close. And I've heard people say, well, that keeps them from slamming down. You're less likely to break the toilet or whatever. Those things were actually built because of, look at the title, the headline here. Falling toilet seats injure more than 1,000 boys every year. And
that would include my little brother.
Is that right?
Yeah, he had to sit in a bathtub full of warm water to urinate for a week.
Well, I had three brothers, and we all have situations like that happen. But it's something you don't really think about. The average person wouldn't think about it. And then when you see the toilet seat out here, you're kind of like, where'd that come from, and why did they do it? Now, we do know that when they put the little skirts and the covers and stuff like that on them, they are one of the reasons that they'll fall. But some of them just fall. They're just big seats. There's still quite a few wooden seats out there, and they weigh a ton. The wooden seats like Beneke and Church and all of them make some really nice heavy seats and stuff. So, like I said, industry came forward and they came up with a solution for this. And I thought, well, is this just kind of a one-off thing? I've just found this one little article. I started looking online. There's tons of articles about this, and it's something, like I said, you normally wouldn't even think about it, but causes a lot of injuries. This University of Maryland Medical Center had an article in there posted about this. So again, I just thought it was pretty unusual. And what we've gone from 100 years ago, we were using outhouses. In some cases, you would have buildings obviously that weren't, but a lot of people that live out in the sticks and things like that would have that. When I was 3 years old, I would visit my grandmother here in Virginia Beach in a neighborhood that's high-end neighborhood now. They had outhouses. And I remember being 3 or 4 years old, they had an outhouse. And my father, who had come from North Carolina and got into the business, he got into the plumbing business. And one of the things he was able to do for them, like I said, was, give them some kind of indoor plumbing. I mean, it's amazing to me when you look back and just how few years it's been. I mean, people have here in Virginia Beach recently, they had an article about people that were living out in the far end of Virginia Beach down near the Carolina line. They pointed out that there were still families down there that had this problem. And when it was talked about, a bunch of these supply houses and some of the plumbing companies actually went into these houses and solved that problem. But anyway, I thought it was interesting to see how these things started out. 7 gallons of water, for a flush, and it mostly, it needed momentum. That's why you see the tanks way up on the wall that do, to push it down. Today, they create a suction. And I wrote some articles on toilets years ago for ASHI, and I remember some of the stuff that I was coming up with. They actually work on the finish of these things. They actually made sure that the inside of the trap in the commode was absolutely smooth, so it wouldn't clog up anything, so they could create that siphoning action that they need in order to, to clean out that trap. So there's all kinds of stuff that they worked on. I don't know if they're going to get any lower in the flush. I mean, I know urinals do, but the problem that they do have with these is the low water level. There's a staining problem. There'll be stains, and people don't really care to go in the bathroom. It looks like the toilet hasn't been cleaned or something like that. So that's been an issue. But I will tell you a plumber's trick, because you're always looking for stuff to offer your customers when you're out there. Some plumbers actually recommend that they put on the inside of the toilet bowl Rain-X, and Rain-X will actually help it keep it from staining. It'll as the water comes out of the rim when it flushes, it doesn't take much water to clean it out that way, and then they don't have that particular issue. Otherwise, you got a pretty shallow trap in these things. And as I said, whereas the old one might have had a foot high, water level, and today they're pretty low, and that can be the problem. I don't know where they're going to go with it. I know, they got composting and all kinds of stuff out there now, but again, I thought it was interesting to see where they went from 7 gallons down to 1.28 gallons. It's just it seems pretty remarkable that they can go that low. And again, once in a while you'll have some trouble with them, but we don't get a lot of phone calls where people said this toilet never flushes. We, generally speaking, if it's a good brand toilet, it's fine. A Kohler, again, American Standard. I'm a fan of Mansfield. Mansfield has the only toilet that I know of you could actually lift the lever back up when you flush it, and it would stop flushing. And that would be good for someone that was about to have a toilet overflow on them. They could actually lift the lever up, and that would stop. So I think I'm done, Hollis.
Okay, well, thanks, Kenny. That's
It's
interesting.
weird.
Always
I'm sure
interesting
you didn't expect to
conversations.
come out here. I'm sure you didn't expect to come out here and somebody talk to you about toilets tonight. But again,
Well, that's what we do, is look at toilets.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. All
yeah.
right, everybody is. See you later.